All right. Hello, everyone. This is our Zcash Landscape, Zcash Wallet Landscape session. This is Paku, your Zcash Wallet community developer, and I'm joined by James from Brave, Josh from ECC, Paul from Edge. We'll be having iBek as well from Unstoppable, Han from Y Wallet, and Zancas from ZingoLabs. So thank you everyone for making it to this session for ZconV. And the idea of this session is to just recap a bit on what we've accomplished so far and start, united looking to the future of the Zcash wallets. So I'm going to kickstart this with a short recap of what we were talking about last year in Zcon 4 on the wallet workshop. This is like 2023 state of the shielded wallets. And last year we did a small comparison of the features that this 6 wallets had, and we run through many of the current features and saw what things were there, what things were missing, and we could actually see that we have a really functionalities that were for sending, receiving Zcash, and shielded and transparent. And then according to when we were progressing on the rest of the more advanced kind of features of our protocol, we were starting to see some differences between the different wallets that are being developed on the ecosystem. For example, here, like the visualization of pending funds or node management and things like that are now obviously changing through the progress of the year, and we have like more and more features coming every day. This is like a small picture of August 2023, where we didn't have spend for sync back then, and we have like warp sync and blaze sync, and now we have new stuff. But and the idea of this comparison was to know where we were standing. So this is a little picture of last year, where we have a lot of features that some wallets have, like Y Wallet had a lot of advanced features, and the other ones maybe focused on more other like kind of profiles or users. And I'm using this matrix to just kickstart a little bit the wallet panorama from last year and start thinking on this year, 2024. And I'm starting with a small icebreaker here. It's a small question for everyone, every panelist here. So, folks, you're given 5 ZEC on a wallet of your choice. Which wallet would you choose, and what would you do with that ZEC? There's a caveat here, is that you cannot pick your own wallet. You cannot pick the wallet that you work on. So I'll start with Han.
Okay. Let me see the list again. Can you go back to the list?
Yes. The list would be the one of the ones we are here. Like it would be Zashi, Edge. For you, obviously not Y Wallet, Brave, Zingo, or Unstoppable.
Okay, so there are different purposes for these wallets, so it's difficult to choose one. I think they all serve their goals. If I have to choose one, and you need a quick answer, I would go for Zashi, because right now it's the officially supported wallet by the foundation, and I tested recently and it performs quite well. So that's Zashi, but the caveat is that Zashi is a fairly basic wallet in terms of functionality. So if I need, for example, to work with other coins, then that would be Edge. And yeah, that's would be my answer. So again, I don't think there's a wrong answer to the question. You can use any of these wallets, but I think Zashi right now is my choice.
All right, and do you have any hints on? Give us some hint on what would you do with that Zec, or you can keep that private.
Unfortunately, I don't really have an outlet for Zec where I live. The only usage I found directly for Zec is to pay for internet hosting. So some of the services are accept Zec or accept Zec through conversion to USDT, and that's the. But I can't use it for my day-to-day life, fortunately. So I think this is actually a good point later to talk about. The usability of wallets is very highly dependent on where you can spend it. So maybe at some point it's going to be a subject of conversation.
Nice. Paul, what about you?
So similar answer, but maybe for different reasons than Han. So I would use Zashi, but mainly because I'd use it as a reference. And you're asking me not as a kind of typical Zec user, but as a Zec wallet developer. And so almost every wallet developer, as you add another asset, at least for multi-asset wallets, you want to compare with a reference. And so to me, Zashi is a reference. I want to see what sync times look like, what address formats are supported. What does it feel like to use memo support? I know Zashi's open source as well, so we can look at the code and compare how you execute some of those operations and how we can mirror that inside of Edge. So that definitely would be the one wallet that I would utilize if, outside of Edge, but it would primarily be as a reference client, not so much for like day-to-day use. And if I had the 5 Zec, really it would be primarily for testing. I just sort of bounce it back and forth and see what issues you run into, how long it takes to be able to respend, what UI shows when things are pending. Can I send memos and receive memos? I'd really be looking for all of that functionality that the entire protocol supports inside of our reference wallet, all the stuff that maybe other wallets don't support, and see how that compares and pick and choose what we may want to incorporate inside of Edge.
Can I add something though to this point? I think if you, I don't want to sound like bad, but the problem with using Zashi as a reference is that it does not implement the entire protocol at this point. So
that's fair. So yeah. Not that using it as a reference actually gets everything that I asked for, but to the layman, that's kind of a bit of an expectation. So maybe you can take that as a little bit of feedback, Josh, that for other people they might see that as a reference. Maybe for some people it's just a wallet to use. From the viewpoint of a developer, I would see it as a reference, and I would expect to be able to use some of the stuff that maybe a multi-asset wallet wouldn't support. So you'd actually get more of the advanced stuff that's very specific to that chain and that asset that maybe a multi-asset wallet might not.
All right, nice, interesting. James, you're I guess the newest kid on the block here on the Zcash. We're pretty thrilled to have Brave on. So now, which wallet would you choose if not Brave?
So my first exposure to Zcash was Zuko asking me to download Zingo so he could demo how fast the transactions were. And so I downloaded Zingo, and I've been using that. I also had the opportunity to give some feedback on the Zashi wallet early designs and were some of the influence as well, and how we solved some problems within the Brave wallet. So I would probably still use Zingo. And I would probably use the 5 Zec to send to other Brave wallet devs for testing.
Nice. All right, since you mentioned Zingo, Zancas, your turn.
I would take my 5 Zec in Water Wallet, and I would eagerly wait for the moment when I could exchange it on a distributed exchange for other cryptocurrencies. But then pretty soon I'd probably want it back in the form of Zec. And I would send it to developers to pay them to, or community members to pay them to make our cryptocurrency better, to make Zec better. That's what I spend all my Zec on. So if I get 5 more, going to the same place.
Yeah. Nice. And Josh, last but not least.
Yeah, this is a tough one because, like, all you that are adding Zec to your wallet or building wallets for Zec specifically, like, you're all champions in my mind, because a lot of the wallets are built for different use cases for different types of users, whether more advanced users or more normies coming in and have these different features and experimenting with different things. And it's amazing and it's a lot of fun, and we need more of these options for Zcashers around the world. And so like everybody here, I really commend you for all the work and sticking through some of the challenges that we had with things like sandblasting and things like that over the last little over a year or so. And if I were to choose one, that probably the one that I've used the most is the Zingo wallet. I also like, there's a lot of great stuff in Y wallet as well, but the Zingo is probably the one that I have the most experience using and playing with. And as far as how to spend my money, like, I wish there were more vendors where I could spend stuff. I was really, there's a community member named Shayla in Venezuela that sells cookies, and I wish I could buy cookies from Shayla, who's created this business around accepting Zec. That would be awesome. What I spend it mostly on, is I'll send messages back and forth. So I've like posted an address up on Twitter a few times, and people occasionally send me messages that I receive, and I get a chance to respond back. So it's kind of an interesting, different kind of use case than normal spending, but it's probably, most of my transactions in my wallet are related to those right now.
Nice. Yes, it would be really nice to have some cookies shipped to everyone. I bought some, but I haven't collected. I hope that I can go to Venezuela sometime and have those cookies because they look really good. And given what we just recapped and maybe start discussing, like, what are the challenges that this is like a question for everyone, and we can like discuss together, like, what are the challenges that your team faced in 2023 regarding Zcash and the Zcash ecosystem, and what are your perspectives like looking forward, like 2024, 2025 and onwards? We can start with the other way around. Josh, for example.
I'll find my cursor and go off mute. I think, the most obvious challenge I think that everybody had was related to the sandblasting attack and the bloat that we saw on the chain, and the problems that people had with scanning. We saw so many people that were just completely frustrated with all the wallet experiences, and I know anybody that's had a wallet having to deal with that. And there's a lot of engineering efforts related to that. So I think that really slowed from the ECC side. For the time that I was there, that really slowed development down quite a bit, and just kind of trying to figure out how to best deal with that that thing. The other is in why we built Zashi to begin with, is we wanted to get closer to users and the things that they were experiencing, as well as kind of building out a full stack, which we can talk about later. And so there's just like, still with all the wallets, I think it's just too much friction, right? It's too complicated, too difficult to understand different address types. People get confused about Zatters and Tatters and U addresses, and so if we're going to onboard like a lot of people to be able to use Zcash around the world, there's just a lot of those friction points we have to figure out how to smooth. And then to the point made earlier, I think the other challenge is just ways to spend it. And pretty cool. I had some conversations actually with James and the Brave team, and we were talking about different ways of like different partners they have and just different mechanisms to be able to put their Zcash to work for people that want to use it on a more day-to-day basis, or pull some out of their store and use it to be able to spend. So there's some big challenges there. I think that the team has, and we still need to overcome.
Nice. And Zancas, what about your team and challenges and perspectives?
So our big challenge for 2023 is we have people may not know the history of Zingo. Zingo was originally Zec Wallet. Zec Wallet was originally Zcon 1 demo WASM. So it was a proof of concept that came out in at Zcon 1. And so we have had a bunch of legacy code, and we attempted to port some of the newer developments from Libra Zcash into that code base, and it couldn't handle it. So from 2023, we realized that we really needed to rewrite most of Zingo, and as of now, we're looking at about like 60% of it has been completely rewritten in the last, actually since ZBoot. So for us, there was the coming to grips with the state of the code base and recognizing the work that was necessary and carrying it out. So we've done that. So I think looking forward, we are expecting to have a lot more bang for the buck, because we've eaten a lot of tech debt in the last 6 months. So
Right, yeah, that's nice to hear. Like, yes, I always follow your repos, and I get like a lot of notifications about like commits every day. So yeah, you're crunching that tech. That's really awesome. And James, I guess that you can tell us a little bit about your challenges on the past time as well, and what perspectives you Brave and your team has for this 2024 and 2025.
Yeah. So we rewrote our wallet back in 2019, or started to be fully native. So one of the challenges is managing the code, the shared code. But at a high level, we took a user first approach. We want, Brave Wallet is a multi-chain wallet. We see it as you should have access to Web3 out of the box. We also have other payment options for users to contribute to content creators, publishers through a Brave reward system. And we've sort of started expanding it to introduce P2P payments. So we wanted it to be a first-class citizen in the Brave wallet, and we push for certain specific behavior. For example, auto shielding, transparent, any incoming transparent transactions into the unified address. But we're still early. So right now, the Brave wallet has support for transparent transactions. And so it's, kind of getting from making the move from the transparent transaction support into the full shielded transaction support and account support, and have it, work seamlessly across a user who has, one wallet that can support, different types of currencies or different types of blockchains. So that's been our challenge, getting the shared work in, and then Brave has quite a few hurdles in terms of just review. The review process can be pretty tedious in terms of reviewing third-party dependencies to sort of minimize supply chain attacks and various other things. So But I'd say no major problems. I thought the wallet landscape looks good so far. I like some of the ease of use of what I saw from the Zashi wallet, and we hope to bring sort of our own flavor, but give something to users that feels familiar and is private.
Nice to hear that. And what about Edge and your team, Paul?
I don't want to have to reiterate a lot of what Josh said. Obviously, the sandblasting attack was our biggest challenge on kind of the general affects everyone type of experience. But if I had to be a bit more specific to what Edge experienced, I think on a technical level, dealing with a lot of, I don't want to bore people with the details, but some compile issues with some changes that were done to the SDK that just weren't compatible with our framework, with React Native. That poured, man months of effort into getting that up and running for us. I know we've had some discussions in the light client working group on how to resolve that going forward. And I know Paco, you were part of those discussions with CocoaPod support and whatnot. But I know that sunk easily the largest amount of time to get just equivalent functionality that we already had. So that was one challenge. And then I want to take it kind of like out of the box as far as the challenge of a wallet developer, because part of our job is to build a product. And then the second part of our job is to promote what it does. And I think one of the challenges we had is the messaging of Zcash, in the sense that people that want to use it, and we hosted events too. We're really big on community and events. We hosted events and talk about Zcash, but then it's really talking about the why of the protocol, especially because the protocol is so different than just a Bitcoin or Ethereum. Why are these different address formats? Why is there a transparent and then a shielded? Why is there a unified? Why is there a sync time that I don't have it on these other chains? And when we have to explain all of those challenges to people, and for many people, sure, they care about privacy, but many people maybe care about it, but not enough to ask all of these why questions. And to explain the nuanced technical details of that why, I think was a huge challenge that I think can't be understated, right? And it's a pretty key piece of the adoption challenge. And so if we somehow get to a point where we're no longer having to explain those things because we have a product that is equivalent to at least crypto, right? We're not trying to even get equivalent to fiat, right? Because fiat obviously is the easiest thing for people to use right now. If you can use it and you're not barred from using fiat, it's fairly easy. But if you are at least are familiar with a Bitcoin, a Litecoin, a Doge, then not having to explain the UX differences, and then now it's just, hey, you get better privacy. Here's the privacy that you don't get in Bitcoin. And I feel like that would hugely solve a big challenge that we experienced in 2023. Once again, outside of the other stuff that people mentioned.
Oh, that's pretty interesting that you mentioned that. And speaking of the whys, so Han, what are the challenges that Y Wallet faced in 2023? I know that you and people recognizes that a lot to you, that your wallet actually fought the sandblasting pretty hard, and people were able to access their Zcash with Y Wallet. So what are the other challenges that you faced in 2023, and what are the perspectives that you have for Y Wallet in this upcoming time?
Okay, so as you said, regarding the sandblast, the synchronization method that we have handled it okay, right? We were able to process the sandblast. Of course, it got much slower than before, since the capacity went 10-fold or 100-fold. But in terms of stability, it worked through. So in 2023, I wouldn't say there was a big challenges regarding Y Wallet architecture or design. The biggest work we had was probably the UX and the UI redesign. Speaking about the future, and related to what Paul just said about usability and parity with other coins, First of all, I would say that I think usability is the most important thing to achieve, because once you have a reason to use a currency, you start to accept shortcomings of the design, of the implementation. Because, for example, if you use Monero, which is our main competitor, the synchronization time is horrible. It's way worse than Zcash, and nobody really complains about that, because you can, as far as you can use, as long as you can use it, I think it's fine, even though it's 10 or 100 times lower than Zcash, because they don't have like wallet architecture. You have to download the blockchain. But if you compare Zcash to Litecoin, to Bitcoin, or any other currency that is not private, you start to run into the issue of having to synchronize and having to scan the blockchain. And this is going to get worse and worse, because the blockchain is going to get larger and larger. So for me, if we want to solve this moving forward, the only real solution is to have aggregation and have peer-to-peer communication of synchronization you have, even if it was the one that was pre-Sandblast, the linear competitor, the synchronization time is horrible. It's way worse than Zcash, and nobody really complains about that, because you can, as far as you can use, as long as you can use it, I think it's fine, even though it's 10 or 100 times lower than Zcash, because they don't have like wallet architecture. You have to download the blockchain. But if you compare Zcash to Litecoin, to Bitcoin, or any other currency that is not private, you start to run into the issue of having to synchronize and having to scan the blockchain. And this is going to get worse and worse, because the blockchain is going to get larger and larger. So for me, if we want to solve this moving forward, the only real solution is to have aggregation and have peer-to-peer communication of the transactions offline, and have just the ZKP and a summary of the ZKP put online on chain. But right now, the issue, I would say, that the sandblast is over, and the transaction rate is back to where it was before the sandblast, which was really low. It's less than 1 transaction per second. If you do the average, is 0.01, something very low. Not talking about Coinbase, not talking about transparent transaction. I'm just talking about Sapling and Orchard here. So at this level of rate, any algorithm would work. If you start a new wallet now, you have a new user, regardless of what synchronization you have, even if it was the one that was pre-Sandblast, the linear synchronization that Paku was talking about, you would be able to synchronize, no issue. So the Sandblast was, for me, was a wake-up call, and we improved a lot of stuff. But I don't think it has solved really anything in terms of what would happen if it comes back, because the need to scan everything is still going to be, it's still there until you have aggregation. So for me, the future is 2 things, right? Either you solve the scalability issue by aggregation, and you solve that because you have a need. So number 1 should be like having a need to have more transactions. So it goes back to having merchants having a way to use Zcash, which is not here right now. The Sandblast was completely artificial. It's not an increase of usage, in my opinion. So that's number one. And maybe related to that is the programmability issue, that we are separated from the rest of Web3 because we don't have a way to run smart contracts. And our competitors, other chains, are getting into that business. We have other chains using Halo 2, our technology, to implement. Like for example, one case to my mind is Aztec. Aztec has will have shielded protocol for shielded smart contracts. Sorry. You have other coins are also taking the same approach. And I think it's going to be a big sell for them compared to a coin which may be the front runner in terms of privacy, but it's just privacy at the end of the day. If you can't use it, what's the point of having a wallet that only stores coins? At the end of the day, I mean, you can put Bitcoin into your wallet. It's completely not private, but if you don't use it, it's still private. Nobody can see the transactions because there are no transactions at the end of the day, right? So yeah, for me, there are two things moving forward. One is aggregation, and two is programmability. If you want to go back to the challenge of Y Wallet, I think the one challenge that Y Wallet had was the fact that in order to improve further warp sync, so I had prototype for warp sync 2, which has like a twofold improvement in speed. I would need to change the protocol. I would need to change the light wallet protocol, and that is not easy to do. That's the biggest challenge, and therefore we didn't do it. The warp sync remain as a personal prototype. I have it running for myself with my own servers, but I don't think I can push that into the official repos. Yeah. So that's
a really interesting insight. I don't know if anyone wants to reply or compliment or add anything to what, like the many points that Han already brought up.
Yeah, I'd like to gently push back on this concept that the Monero people don't care about like slow sync. I'll agree. It is a slower sync given an apples to apples comparison. But Monero does have other options that are zero sync. And so at a compromise of some privacy, they have, which is what Edge has implemented for Monero, the giving up with a view key to a server. And then as well, with that same option, people can run their own Monero node, which as well could hold the view key for themselves, giving up just about no privacy. Much like someone could run their own Light Wallet D server, someone can run a Monero LWS server. And, they have up and coming kind of small size nodes that you can buy for a few $100s that then run an LWS server for you. And it's just a plug and play experience. And we had a notable influx of users come in when we had implemented a view key style architecture because the user experience was so much better than waiting for sync, that they were willing to give up that level of privacy. And some of these people were developers, so they knew what they were giving up. And so I would say it's not good enough to say that, oh, people have to care enough about privacy and they'll deal with it and they'll deal with a shitty user experience. I think that, we should still strive for that equivalent user experience of other cryptos, because crypto already is something that users have to deal with, even if it's Bitcoin, right? It's already different from fiat. Let's not make it even worse than that. And so I would say that's still a valuable thing to focus on. And it probably be, I don't want to go into basically the next question that this panel will have, but I'm sure I'll have more to say regarding, what we would love to see as part of the protocol going forward.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should not strive for that. And speaking about the view key, I actually had implemented that as well on the Zcash protocol. So you could send the view key to a server and have the same process as Monero, where the server would do the trial decryption and all the work for you, and actually implemented that through a GPU. So with relatively small video card, you could process millions of transactions per second. So like 10 million transactions per second, which is probably like 1,000 times faster than the normal processing on the phone or on the desktop. So technically speaking, we could do that. The problem was that when I polled the users, and the Zcash community in general, through the forums and through Telegram, there was a huge pushback. They basically, again, it may be because that community is very privacy oriented, so it's not, maybe not your average users, but they said, oh, no, we want Zcash because Zcash is highly private, and I'm not going to give our view key to anyone, and we will take the synchronization slowness. So yeah, I agree with you that it could be mitigated, but I think the mitigation is not appropriate for Zcash users, because one of the seduction or one of the selling point of Zcash is its really high level of privacy, and you would take it back if you go for this approach.
I think it's a dangerous path that much of cryptography has made over the past several decades, is not letting perfect be enemy of the good. And
totally agree with you with
the trade-off is that you just don't get any adoption. And
yeah,
so
I totally agree with you.
I think Monero has made a decent decision. I'm glad you at least pinged the community, but I think the community as it is, because it's so, privacy technology as a whole is very lightly adopted. They're not the people that we're trying to get privacy into the hands of. And so it's one of those, like, if you build it, they will come. And at least we have an example of the fact that people will utilize this technology, utilizing a different chain, which also does have a lot of people that care about privacy. And you're right, it's not a protocol level thing. We don't have to make changes to the protocol, but it's an ecosystem thing. And there are standards and there's open source implementations that people can utilize, such as, the LWS server, and a standardized API to use it, and a commercial implementation that, wallet providers can pay for with MyMonero. And so having that as part of the ecosystem, not the protocol, is a key piece. And then we can go forward and also talk about what the protocol can do to make this far more efficient and private, which can leapfrog an implementation like Monero. But I'm glad we're on the same page. Glad you had tried it out. But I think that listening to the 0.01 percentile of the people that we want to adopt Zcash is a bit of a possibly dangerous thing to do, because we want to adopt it by more than those people.
Yes, but you also have to realize that
I'd like to hop in here, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me answer Paul's point for 1 second. I would show unfortunately, I would say that this 0.01% is in charge of a lot of stuff. So, for example, my personal opinion is that the changes in the protocol would not have gone through the protocol dev approval.
But this is not a change of the protocol. You said you implemented it yourself. There's no protocol change.
You have to push it so that it's integrated properly. Otherwise, you would have fragmentation in the space. Right? You would have servers that understand it, servers that don't understand it. It's a mess.
No, it's a totally separate server. It's like a light wallet D. It's a totally separate.
Yeah.
Light wallet D is part of the protocol, really.
This is a false dichotomy. Just as I guess MyMonero is a commercial service that says, "Hey, give us your view keys and we'll give you faster sync." That could be done without any change to protocol. But let's start the company. Go for it. Nobody's holding you back.
We're not talking about MyMonero, right? We're also talking about the fact you can push the key to a Monero server. MyMonero is the commercial service. You're right. They offer that as a service, but you can also do the same by using Monero D, the network of Moneros.
Oh no, that's an LWS. Monero LWS is the open source MyMonero API that was built and is being advanced and optimized by the community, that someone can run on their own if they want to go through that effort to get that additional level of privacy, but a very fast sync experience for their light client wallet. And I think that's something that's available because the community, not protocol, but the community as a whole has pushed effort into, that I think is missing in the Zcash realm.
All right, that's pretty
business
interesting.
Opportunity.
Yeah. So we can go like deeper into this. Like Han mentioned a couple of things he was interested in that we can I can welcome you also to maybe introduce the audience to what are like your like near future terms and or plans on features and functionality, and for your wallet, and maybe your desires for Zcash as a whole, and then maybe think or reflect about like if you could only implement like one of those things that you're planning or you're wishing to develop for the next year, which one would it be? Which one is the more important, or the one that will bring more value to your team or to the ecosystem? So I'd like to start with James, which is our newest member.
So yeah, bringing shielded Zcash to all of our users. Beyond that is expanding on utility. Brave Wallet being multi-chain, looking to interoperability. So we're actively adding more ways to more providers for bridging and swapping, even those that would allow you to cross-chain swap between Zcash or Ethereum or anything else, Bitcoin. And so getting the shielded transactions, shielded support in is sort of the first step there. But actively pursuing our network of other tools, and we've, like I mentioned before, we've got creator support system, which we unlocked P2P payments to. These are all on-chain payments, adding Zcash as a payment method there, and further outreach and just growing awareness. Brave ads, for example, does well in terms of like us being able to get the messaging out there. So I would say shielded support, but just finding real utility across the web.
Nice. And Josh, I know that you often post a lot about like the future. So what can you tell us about the near present of Zashi, and then like which one of all of those things you think would be the most important to have? Or
yeah, so we just released Zashi, and we're really just kind of started building out the team to be able to support it well. So Zashi 1.0 on iOS released April 28th, and Android released just a few days ago, or March 28th, and then Android just released April 28th. So we're starting to get a lot of user feedback. So we have, if you want to follow it in terms of our roadmap, we're pretty transparent about it. You can go to electriccoin.co/roadmap, and it's there. And then we're reevaluating that roadmap every quarter. So a lot of what we're focused on are some quick wins for this quarter. And I say quick wins, but it's like giving some people utility. So the ability to spend their ZEC, either through things like debit cards, to be able to onboard ZEC more easily. And so we've been talking to and working with a number of partners that would allow you to do that. Flex is one as well, that we're engaged with as potential. So that was something that came out of ZBoot. We had this conference, this community conference in January, and something that we heard across the board was people wanted to be able to more actively move their coins. The coins want to move; they don't want to sit in a wallet and stashed away somewhere. People want to realize that financial privacy through their transactions. The intention, what we talked about with the stack, is that the intention with Zashi is to be a stack, not just a crypto wallet, but to provide a range of capabilities that really exploit and take advantage of all of the amazing things in the Zcash protocol, but also beyond that, things that the community is building, and incorporate those things that are most interesting to most users, as best we can within the current regulatory climate in context. And so we're being very careful about that and kind of understanding what's going on right now, because right now, quite honestly, anything related to self-custody is under attack in the US. We've seen that with the recent actions last week. the regulatory overreach related to Samurai Wallet, Tornado Cash, the FBI's notice, very concerning. And so we have to be also very careful about what we do and what we put out into the world and what we can support. So that also helps inform our roadmap. We're moving as quickly as possible to make sure all the code is open source and get as much code out in the world as we can to solve some of these needs. Right now, code is speech, but I don't know that that's guaranteed, right? The way that we've seen things moving, and we shouldn't assume that it's always going to be there. So we have a fire in our bellies to get as much code out into the world as we can, so that people can pick this stuff up if there's things that we can't do. Some of the specific things, in addition to things like payment capabilities, we need to look at performance improvements. So right now, the wallet requires 10 confirmations as a security measure. It's way too long for day-to-day payments. There may be some interesting ways to kind of handle that, to handle change, and those are things that we're working on. We want to do things like import view and key, so you have a read-only wallet. Some of those things are like capabilities in Y Wallet and Zingo today that are just not there yet with Zashi. And then a near-term thing as well that we're looking at, and we were going to put on this quarter, but we kind of pushed out. Maybe the next quarter is liberated payments. So the idea that I can send ZEC to another person via secure messaging, and they can claim that ZEC without having first installed the wallet. Is part of what we've heard within our communities. Our communities are onboarding other people. So I mentioned Shayla earlier in Venezuela. Like Shayla was onboarded by another member of the community who got very interested in Zcash, and has been spreading the word. And Shayla's doing the same, right? So how do we make it easy for those people that believe in it? Those we call kind of our initial 100 power users to onboard people around them, people in their community, where it's not 5 steps. You're not explaining all the stuff like Paul was talking about to get over all that kind of mental load. But how do we make that as simple as possible? So there's some near-term focus. The thing that I would love to see as soon as possible are more freedom-based tools integrated into the wallet. And what I mean by that is something like a DEX. So I know Han's working on the Maya solution. Awesome, Han. Thank you for doing that. Thorchain was one that had at one point committed to adding ZEC, and then when Tornado Cash happened, they got nervous, and so they backed out. Maya is a fork of Thorchain. We need DEX options. People around the world, we shouldn't assume that they have access to a centralized exchange. We shouldn't assume that. I mean, they're good. They're people like Shayla, right, who want to be able to just do things day to day to sell cookies, and we're blocking people out of the system. And we need these freedom tools to allow people to onboard, to be able to exchange with one another. So something like a DEX, as soon as that work is done, we intend to integrate that with Zashi, so that we have those kind of tools. Another one that's probably my primary one to answer the question. There's some other things like we're looking at ZSAs, hardware integration. Hardware wallets suck right now for Zcash. That has to be fixed. There may be some interesting ways to get there independent of having to work with those existing hardware wallet providers, because we can't rely on them to deliver just because they haven't done it, and it's been years. So some of those things we'll play with as well, but my number one is access, and so that means a DEX.
All right, speaking of which, I think that one of the people of the Zingo folks are really good at moving ZEC around and having this vibrant community. Like Shayla, I think she's a really a Zingo fan. So Zancas, what can you tell us about this question we're talking about?
Yeah, so Shayla's part of the Zingo community, and what we do is pay people Zcash to create goods and services. It's an economy, if you wish, and something that's going to really change the landscape for us is threshold SIG. that permits, the way we operate is there's a gaggle of us, we have a pool of value, we get together and vote on how to use it. This is, it's the DAO model that's all over Web3. And Threshold SIG is going to enable us to implement that, at the protocol level as opposed to just the social level. And as a distributed anarchic social network with a economic and financial foundation, it's already working great. People are using Zcash to live. They're using Zcash to build cool things. They're using Zcash to pay each other to build cool things. And having a threshold SIG architecture implemented in the wallet and available with an intuitive user interface is going to next level that. So we're really excited about threshold SIG. We're very excited about DEXs in particular. We're excited about a lot of stuff, but threshold SIG is my number one. So the thing I'm most excited about.
Nice. And what about you, Paul? What are your
as far
plans
as
for this year, and what would be the one thing you would like to see?
As far as like functionality inside of Edge, we mostly completed a lot of the stuff that we want to see. Some of it hasn't actually launched yet, but it's actually in testing, such as Orchard support. We have had auto shielding. We got unified addresses in. We probably now need to bite the bullet and expose T addresses outside of unified addresses. It's one of those UX compromises of having to show multiple addresses, but to this day, people still can't withdraw from Coinbase into Edge. And I know Zuko's got on several Twitter threads about that being an issue. So we'll probably add that. That's not too difficult. So there's not like any big one thing that we feel strongly in being able to add an Edge that isn't blocked by someone else. So for example, we'd love to add Maya. We've had Thorchain support for, I think, over a year now. We're big fans of that protocol. And I've spoken to the Maya team, but of course, once that's done, Han, awesome job. Thank you for taking on, the reins in that project. Once that's done, we'd be excited to add that. But as far as what we have in our control, we don't really have anything on the roadmap. From the stuff that's out of our control that I'd really like to see, and I know I've been really vocal about this in the forums, it is detection keys. I can't stress this enough. It is what I consider to be the holy grail balance of privacy and usability. It's instant sync with not nearly the privacy leak of view keys. And I've had enough discussions to determine that I feel like it's very, very feasible. It does require a lot of protocol updates. At least that's what I'm told. I haven't dived in to figure out what that would be. The moon math of Zcash is way above my head, but long term, that feels like the way to make Zcash feel just like every other cryptocurrency and still achieve the privacy promises that it's been eschewing from day one. And that would be my number one thing I'd like to see. I don't think it can happen in a year though. So this is like my, what's the one thing I'd like to see in the next 3 to 5 years? If there would be a number two, a very, very close number two, it would be and I know this is going to get super pushback, but I really want privacy by default. I want to wipe out T addresses. And I think by and large, the world of privacy, generally speaking, has proven that when privacy is optional, it doesn't get used. I'm happy to be proven wrong by this, but I can't cite a good example in the history of privacy tools where the optional privacy gets used by any meaningful percentage of the user base. And so that would be my other, God, I wish I could, that would happen at the protocol level. And it would give, I know, Zcash a high level of reputation within the privacy community to say, oh, I don't have to question what Zcash wallet I use or what it's implemented as, you just get it. And I know there's concerns of, oh, well, we have to be regulatory compliant and be able to expose transactions and people care about transparency. Well, therein lies your view key or being able to provide a key that can decrypt transactions. It's always possible to be transparent optionally. It's very difficult to be private optionally. So that's my take, is that one of the two things that I would love to see, not in a year. I know that's much more than I can ask for in a year, but probably in the more of that 3 to 5 year time frame.
Can I pile on? Because
Sure.
I 100% agree. I 100% agree.
Oh.
Like I want to see them gone. I think it's like it's like a massive usability problem. And when we talk about, okay, the security of people, right, the security of the users, when they don't understand the addresses and they have wallets that are transparent only. I talked about this at the last Zcon. It's a big problem. I've talked to users who are like, oh, I'm so excited about it. I'm using Zcash. And in the one particular case, the guy was like, I've got all my Zcash. He had a fair amount of Zcash on my Atomic wallet. It's like, Atomic doesn't support shielded addresses. He's like, what are you talking about? I thought Zcash was private. It's a huge problem, right? So there he is operating just like Bitcoin, with this, the same privacy guarantees as Bitcoin, and he has no idea. The question of like the transparent, I think some of the regulatory stuff gets, there's some FUD there. And certainly we've seen that with now some new movement with Binance, and they're mandating a new address type, which I hate. And I understand the reasons for creating that new address type for them. But largely the exchanges, it's not been a regulatory conversation. It's been a technology conversation. And are we going to prioritize this ahead of other things? Because what they have to do is they have to deal with their HSMs. And the HSMs, in some cases they're using fairly standard stuff. In some cases they're using custom HSMs. It's some engineering at the beginning before sapling, right? It just wasn't, you couldn't create proofs at scale. So it was like a non-starter, and then it became the HSM excuse. But largely, like the regulated exchanges here in the US outside of Binance, have not expressed regulatory concern. In fact, NYDFS approved Gemini to fully support shielded addresses on the exchange. Now they support deposits and withdrawals. They don't have a native shielded wallet, so it gives you more options than anybody else in the world. They're the only ones that support that. But they got a green light from the regulators to be able to support it. So it has just been a technology and a demand thing. And if there are more and more users demanding, and they saw enough volume with Zcash demanding, maybe it's a chicken and egg thing, Paul. Maybe
just do it.
There'd be demand if their T addresses weren't available. But I do think it's something we have to fix. I've got it on our roadmap out there. And it's like we have to build a set of infrastructure around Zcash so it can continue to thrive outside of centralized exchanges in the long term. So there's like this a base set of stuff that I would like to see in the protocol and around the protocol before we can make that full transition over to shielded only. But that's my opinion. I know like there's many opinions in the community, so but I just want to double down on what you said. I'm a big believer.
Possibly,
Right.
I'm not sure what implementation Maya will have, if it's going to use shielded or transparent. I imagine transparent's much easier, but if somehow that could use shielded, then suddenly the Binances of the world are far less important. And that becomes a factor. Let DEXs save us.
I want to register that I'm pro transparent address. We should keep them forever, just so that there's a voice that's offering a competing view.
Okay, Han, what is the if you had to just implement one of the things that you're working on, which one would it be? You're working on a lot of things.
Okay, so there are three things that are going on right now. There's Maya. So to recap the Maya story, Maya is going to support shielded addresses for incoming and outgoing. So to pose a question, it's possible, but there's a caveat. The caveat is that Maya itself is not shielded, which means that if you make a swap, it will be visible on the Maya chain. So you will see all the transactions on the Maya chain. But once it hits your Zcash wallet on a shielded address, it will be merged there, and people will not see what's going on the Zcash side. So that's the best we can do, because I think that from an exchange point of view, having it fully shielded is not going to be even good for a user, because you would not have any transparency on what's going on in exchange. You would not see the price, you would not see the volume. Everything would be, you would have to trust them to report the proper values. Right? So that's one thing. The other stuff that's going on, and I think it's fairly valuable now, is coin voting. So being able to prove your balance in a cryptographic way and associate a message with it. So in my opinion, it's the only way to make a referendum, to make a poll that is grounded in something real. Otherwise, it's too subject to cyber attacks. Anybody can vote an arbitrary number of times. If there's nothing that is attached to the vote, that can't be forged. So for me, okay, you can argue that voting based on your balance is not very democratic, but I don't see anything else that could be used. Unfortunately, you don't want to have ID checks for this kind of stuff. So what else can you use besides having coins? The coin voting thing is very interesting because it has different implementations, and one of them is using Halo 2 circuit changes. So I have done these, and I think it's one way to promote Halo 2 besides DSA, since it has practical application, but it shows that Orchard is extensible. You can make smart contracts using the libraries that ECC has provided, and now it's all open source. We don't have the BOSL anymore, so anybody is free to go and make these contributions. So that would be one of the contributions. And the last one is being able to do atomic swaps between chains.
Nice.
So this is also difficult and also requires cryptographic work, but this work is also fairly known. So there's prototypes for that. The difficulty here is that the cryptography of Zcash, of course, it's shielded swaps. So if you want to do atomic swaps between transparent and transparent, it's fairly easy. But if you want to do them in shielded, it means that you have to adapt the either the sapling cryptography or the Orchard cryptography. Both of them are fairly similar, but they're on different curves, so you have to do different things. This would open the door to being able to swap with Bitcoin, but mostly Bitcoin. Why is it difficult? It's because the chains are different. We don't have programmability, and it has to be done cryptographically. And I guess all of this boils down to my point about programmability, meaning that anything that you want to do in Zcash is extremely hard because you have to understand cryptography at a fairly deep level. If you wanted to do the same thing in Ethereum, it would be a fairly easy, I wouldn't say trivial, but any developer that knows Solidity can do a fairly good contract. Of course, we can mess it up. We can make contracts that are buggy, and we saw that with the CryptoFunk issue, the NFT problem. But it's still a million times easier than having to understand zero knowledge proofs and making circuits and all that stuff, right? Same thing for ZSA. ZSA is pretty much the same thing as ERC20, and ERC20 is like essentially 100 lines of Solidity code. So if I had one thing to push for in Zcash, it would be programmability. For me, programmability is way out of my scope. I can't do that by myself, obviously, right? So if we are talking about something that Wallet can do or one person can do, and I have to choose between these three things, I would choose Maya. I would choose DEX because it opens the door for more usability. And I think at this point, we can argue to death about who governs Zcash, who decides to do what. But if there is no price traction, if the price remains where it is, nothing will be achievable because people will leave the project. They need to eat, right? The money is up there to fund the project. So I think for me, maybe DEX is not the solution. I mean, DEX is not enough. We need other stuff, like Paul was saying, having our Brave, we do also with having usage for Zcash and in other ecosystems. But from my perspective, the stuff that I can contribute to, it would be a DEX.
Good. So to wrap up, the last or question or topic would be, I guess that we're all bullish on privacy here, but so if you're bullish on privacy, what do you think we need to work on, or maybe your team or as the ecosystem, to bring Zcash like back to the top and I don't know, even higher? So let's see, James.
Well, I mean, tapping into our again our network and other providers we've used, either for completing sort of e-commerce type payments, light client providers as well. I mean, looking into other infrastructure, and just I think out of general curiosity, showing people that they can get private transactions in a simple UI and hold Zcash along with any other cryptos that they may be wanting to use. Even though the dApp or smart contract support's not there yet, being ready for that. I think there's also just other utility. Either Josh mentioned earlier, Zcash to crypto, and I've at Brave we've also reached out to other on-ramp providers that could support Zcash direct to their on-chain wallet. So we're still pushing hard on that front and advertising as well.
Nice. All right, I'll ask you all to be brief, so we are wrapping up on the top of the hour. So Zancas, can you give us your take on this?
Yeah, you need privacy to be safe, and you need safety to be healthy, and that applies at all levels. So that applies, in the sanctity of your own mind, right? You need a private space to think, and without that private space, without that safety that emerges from having a private space, you can't have, in that case, mental health. So no privacy, no safety, no health. We need privacy for safety. It's about safety.
Nice. Paul.
I'll try to make it quick. Privacy, in essence, is us trying to be relatively invisible or make things that we don't want to be public invisible. But privacy itself, or the usage of it, also needs to be invisible. So make privacy invisible. Make it where you don't have to know that you're using a tool that is delivering privacy, and then everybody gets it.
Nice. Some closing thoughts on this.
Okay, so quickly, I would say that I agree with what people said earlier. One thing I would have to add is that for me, it's not black and white. It's not you have to be private or you lose all your liberties. I think we live in a society where you have to accept that there is some government control. Even in your home, when you say, okay, my home is my private space, I don't want the cops to come and knock at my door and be swatted. There still has to be some provision for the authorities to enter and to do something. You're not your castle. And making a system where there's no regulation possible is never going to fly, in my opinion. There will be so maybe it could be something that if you make a transaction that has a low amount, it will go through easier than having a transaction that has transfer $1 million to some shady person. But I think that there should be a way for the regulators to monitor the chain in at least overall that you have to show something that blocks the bad actors from using your chain to do something evil bad. And for that, it has to be cooperation between the protocol designers and the authorities. So for me, no black and white. That's where privacy should go.
All right, and Josh, yes, you're our last. So I guess that iBek will join us late. Yeah, no, iBek will join us
Yeah.
So take it away.
I mean, Yes, I'm bullish. I mean, if we don't have privacy, then we're all screwed, right? And we've got this dystopian hellscape that none of us want. And we've seen the kind of the overreach that happens. And so, to Han's point, that it's not black and white. So regulatory clarity is something I think that's important. So people, if we're talking about mainstream adoption, people need to kind of understand what the risks are, right? If they're doing something within the law or not within the law within a particular jurisdiction that they're in, that whole thing is not going to come easy. But we have seen that happen before. We saw that with HTTP, HTTPS, in the crypto wars, some level of that. All that said, like we are, I mean, that's one thing. But right now, access to Zec isn't sufficient. The usability of being able to use and store Zec isn't sufficient. Access to decentralized services cross-chain isn't sufficient, or not even there. Zcash is still on its own island. So there's like a heck of a lot of work we need to do to build out that full stack. And I love Paul's framing of it, is making it invisible. So it's a no-brainer. You don't even have to think about it. I like 100% align with that kind of vision, and hopefully, there's more and more of you than there has ever been, kind of in the Zcash community, that are building things, and I think we can get there.
All right, so we're going to start with an icebreaker. Some question I want to ask you, iBek, is you're given 5 Zec on a wallet of your choice. Which wallet would you choose, and what would you do with that Zec? There's a little trick here, is that you cannot pick your own wallet. You cannot pick Unstoppable. You have to choose any other of the wallets, like Brave, Y Wallet, Zashi, etc. Zingo.
Cool. Well, I represent Unstoppable Wallet, and I'm from those that are that support Zcash. I'm probably more familiar with Edge Wallet because it's a multi-coin wallet, and it's, in a way, it's one of our direct competitors, I would say. And I also like that wallet because they have a good UI. So that's one thing we share in common with them. I also like Zashi wallet. Well, it's hard to choose. I would probably go with Edge. I am a multi-coin type of guy, so I would go with Edge. It's similar. It's similar to what we have, and it feels modern. So yeah, I would go with. On the other hand, if I am to choose Zcon wallet, I would go with Zashi, I think. Yeah. And what would I do with that Zec? Well, I wouldn't sell it like on an exchange, right? There is no use in it. I'm thinking I would probably, if there were more ways to spend it. I haven't looked for it specifically, but I suppose that there should be some services which allow to use privacy-friendly coins. And I'm not talking about illegal stuff, but some legit ways to use privacy coins whenever you want to buy something online. I was actually quite familiar with that type of experience in the early days of Bitcoin, like 2014, 2015, I think it was. So I would use it there, but most probably I would just keep it. Yeah, I would store it.
You will be a Zodler then, yes. All right, that's another use of Zec. It's nice. And now, talking a bit about Unstoppable and your recent past work on Zcash, what are the challenges that your team faced in 2023? And what are your perspectives for your team and for your product on Zcash looking forward?
Challenges. Well, I think protocol change. Well, not necessarily protocol change, but change in general. Zcash is a bit non-standard. I mean, it's not just a privacy coin, right? Zcash has, well, right now, it used to have 2 address types. Right now, there is a new address type which is being introduced. So these are the challenges. And for us, it's a two-sided challenge. Firstly, we need to find a way to introduce those non-trivial concepts to an audience which is not ready to understand those things. You know, I mean, it's hard enough to onboard people to non-custodial storage in general. You know, but then you have specifics, chain specifics or coin specifics, such as, well, in case of Zcash, it might be birthday height, different address types. So these are the main challenges, I would say, but nothing really. Well, there is a challenge with the slow sync speed, but I'm thinking like all of those challenges are being addressed and at a decent pace. And Zcash in particular has a rather fast approach. A community has, I'm thinking ecosystem has a fast approach to addressing those things. So in 2003, there was a lot of back and forth, like a lot of changes. But yeah, things are looking good in general, and yeah, they are being addressed. So, and regarding perspectives, one thing I would really want to see in Zcash is right now, I see, and I think many people see it as isolated, especially with many centralized exchanges right now in particular are not like do not play nice with privacy coins, right? I mean, you see like many exchange delisting Monero, for example. So there is a problem of Zcash being isolated, and I think what we need here is a bridge to the general crypto ecosystem. And in my opinion, DEXs will be a major like a major step in that direction. DEXs and UI. So once you integrate DEXs, you also need to work on UI so that those DEXs are usable by people, right? Not just like 0.1% of us who understand. So, but like on fundamental level, I think there is a need for DEXs. Someone also mentioned about programmability, and I think that's there too, but it's probably a bit less important right now, but in the long run, definitely.
All right. And if you could only implement one of the things that you're planning for next year, or if you could only see one of these features next year in Zcash, which one would it be?
Yeah, that would be DEX. And in fact, it's one of those things that's in our next year roadmap. There are a number of protocols, Maya being one of them, which I think is at the step where we can take and integrate them.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. As everyone is like looking forward to the Maya integration. Actually, that's pretty nice. And so I guess everyone here is bullish on privacy, but are you still bullish on privacy? And what do you think that we as part of the Zcash ecosystem need to work on to bring Zcash back to the top?
I think I think once we are in a general bull run, Zcash will be there among the top coins. It's just a matter of it's a matter of fact that at the moment that we don't have coins acting independent from each other, we see Bitcoin going up, and then the rest of the ecosystem catches up. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, I think once there are DEXs and they are well integrated, there will be a lot of use cases for Zcash in general, like use cases that go beyond current community. So because it's a privacy coin, it's, in my opinion, I think it's a compliant privacy coin, which is kind of a rarity at the moment, right? You have well, you have non-compliant privacy coins which fight their own battle. I think they have their own use case, and there is a Zcash like coins which are in line with compliance rules and provides everything that's needed for regulators, and at the same time provides users a way to have private transactions when they need them. So I think it's already working in that direction with the transparent addresses, unified addresses. So there is not much I would add other than a DEX. I think opening up Zcash to the rest of the crypto ecosystem is essential, because it would result in capital flowing from one side to another, which is, I think, is important, both for price as well as utility in general.
Well, that's a really great way to wrap up this talk. We have a small call to action here to the public to download a wallet, a Zcash wallet. We are leaving a slide with the QR codes on the URLs of the sites for all of the attendants: Brave, Edge, Unstoppable, Y Wallet, Zingo, and electric coin companies Zashi. So thank you all for being part of this panel, and thank you for the audience to being at ZconV.